do pretty much whatever we want to with animation, with modeling, so that the shortcomings that people were working in the game industry before aren't acceptable anymore. So we're having to hire a lot of people from the film industry.
It's just amazing now that what we can do. We can have scenes where people animate and respond.
Don't drink the water. They put something in it.
The player can be any location in the room, and the characters will still play out their scene and animate toward him, gesture at the player, look at the player, follow him.
Cover me, Gordon.
All the time while revealing the bits of the story.
This is how it always starts. First the building, then the whole block.
We found that we needed to really make much stronger demands on our voice actors and go to some traditional Hollywood actors to get the level of acting that we wanted to have.
Are you sure you don't want me to swap out the polarizer?
When we started to get these great animators working on the game, we realized how much farther we could bring our acting.
The inspiration for our facial animation system was the work of Dr. Paul Ekman. He's a researcher that came up with a catalog of facial movements and the expressions. So we went to his system and came up with a set of 34 different facial muscle groups that we modeled on all of our characters that can then be animated and so that you get very realistic facial expressions and the face is always in motion.
The differences between animating for film and for games is mainly in games, you don't have close-ups and such like that.
What a director does when they're blocking out a movie, they're like, this actor needs to move here and deliver this line and look at this other actor.
Which in film, you know exactly, what angle you're animating for. And in games, you have no idea, especially in Half-Life 2. It's all an interactive experience. We don't go to cutscenes or anything like that. Our camera is constantly moving because it's the player.
It's to get the player to have an emotional reaction. These characters are really like acting out a scene.
So all our animations, gestures and movements need to be more broad so that it can read from almost any angle.
The same amount of detail that goes into creating the character models
also goes into creating the characters' personalities.
We found that players really got emotionally attached to our characters, and so we made a huge investment in character acting.
Remember when we thought Black Mesa was as bad as it could get?
We had to come up with very solid personalities and characterizations for the characters so we could stay with that.
I can't take it anymore.
We created character profiles for all of the major characters and went through a deep series of questions like about their heritage, where they're born, what their parents were like, their religion, sexual preferences, etc. We'd go through this litany of questions so that we'd really get a pretty good feel for who the character was. And then we tried to find the face that worked with that, and then it really gave us a great grounding for casting the voice because we really knew who the person was.
Pay attention, Mr. Freeman.
While Valve works on making Half-Life 2, the public is kept in the dark.
So we kept waiting until they finally were able to show something, and showed some technology of what they were working on.
It's not until E3 2003 that Half-Life is finally revealed to the world.
The reaction we got when we first showed Half-Life 2 at E3 was tremendous. Right off the bat, it was like, whoa, wow, look at that. People instantly start planning the upgrade of their PCs. It was just great for the whole team to know how much the audience out there was waiting for this game and how excited they were with just the pieces that we showed.
When we initially announced the game, we also were pretty bold about announcing a release date.
Gabe Newell walks into the room, sits down and said, Half-Life 2 is coming out on September 30th. Really? Is it? No, say it ain't so.
And we also said, surprise, you haven't heard about it until now, and you're going to be able to be playing it in just a few months.
Well, as it turns out, it wasn't so, and a year later, it's just about heading out.
I'd like to thank you all for coming, and when the game's out, I hope you enjoy it.
The anticipation for that one game is just absolutely incredible.
Half-Life 2 is a huge hit at E3, and Valve is riding high. But in just a few months, everything will come crashing down.
The Source Engine gives us the wide variety of visual effects that are possible.
After a hugely successful E3 showing in 2003.
And of course, what tech demo would be complete without a giant pachinko machine?
Valve promises gamers that Half-Life 2 will be ready in September of that year.
Thank you very much.
But Valve won't make that date. Instead, they will become the victim of one of the biggest hacks in gaming history.
One of the biggest challenges we've had in developing Half-Life 2 was the theft and release of the source code of the game on the internet.
Somehow, a hacker was able to set up some sort of code recording software on Valve's machines and was able to actually steal the Half-Life 2 source code and then distribute it across the internet.
Well.
At the time, it was shocking.
That was a dark day for us at Valve.
So it started with me being perplexed by the behavior of my PC. It's like, hey, why is my PC doing this? So I ended up reformatting my hard drive and just sort of saying, well, okay, hopefully that was some strange transient phenomenon. But then we continued to see sort of odd behavior in our network.
Some of our internal communication showed up on the internet.
And at that point, we were pretty sure that we were compromised. We didn't know how badly it was. It was like, okay, somebody's gotten into our email. So we disconnected ourselves from the internet. The people who had broken in and had ongoing access to our network decided that, okay, the jig is up, and that's when they started posting all sorts of email.
We immediately thought we had some kind of security problem, but it got much, much worse.
And we started doing sort of forensic stuff, and the more we looked, the more scared we got, because somebody had put all the software onto my machine.
Within a space of just a few hours, when we started seeing screenshots of our game show up online and even source code for the game engine itself.
So at this point, we're like, okay, we've been compromised. We all have to get new credit cards and that sort of thing. And then they posted the source code. It sort of said, whatever it is that they were saying. And the bottom just fell out. Everybody at the company was completely freaked out.
And from there, a bunch of people got their hands on it and started playing it and posting more images of the game.
I had people in the company coming to me and saying, are we going to go out of business? What does this mean? Are we ever going to ship Half-Life 2 now?
For the team, it's a blow to morale to have something that we believe in so strongly and that we care about so much be debuted to some number of people out there in a way that was unfinished and unpolished. It just hurt us, to have that happen.
We were getting these statistics of 4 million people have downloaded the source code to the game. They were like, oh my God. And people were starting to post X-rated screenshots of our characters having sex with each other and just doing all of these things. So we got a hold of the FBI and trying to see if they could help us track us down. We were spending a bunch of time trying to figure out what had been done to our network and trying to dig ourselves out. The FBI was not giving us warm fuzzies that this issue was going to get resolved. They were like, well, no, nobody ever gets caught.
We appealed to the gamer community for help with this problem.
They're the ones who help us with everything else we do.
So we sent out a message saying, look, our stuff has been stolen. We know that you're anxious to play it just as much as we're anxious to release it. This hurts, so we could use all the help we can get with trying to find the people responsible so this doesn't happen to anybody else.
And the community just instantly sort of latched onto this.
The response to that was amazing. Tens of thousands of email messages were sent to us with tips about possible sources of the leak or where people were seeing stuff show up online.
I got about 8,000 responses, like, okay, here's where I got this source code from. And as we started to converge, people were being called in to question by the FBI. And the word started to go out that they're closing in on this guy in Germany. And that's when that person in Germany contacted me saying, please, I'm not such a bad guy after all.
Eventually we did get results from the combination of the community's involvement and the FBI's involvement. Without the gaming community, I would be surprised if we were able to have any meaningful success.
They were arrested and prosecution is ongoing.
With the source code theft behind them, Valve goes back to finishing Half-Life 2, from the storyline to the gameplay.
You start off the game again, figuring out your whereabouts in the world.
Welcome. Welcome to City 17.
You're deposited in City 17, which is a mysterious city created out of the ruins of other cities. You're surrounded by a populace that's totally beaten down and is waiting for some reason to strike back, sort of a depressed powder keg. And Gordon Freeman, the usual situation for him is he's a catalyst for change.
Half-Life 1 was really known for having pretty advanced AI, and we knew that going forward we were going to have to make additional investments in the AI. We spent a lot of time thinking about the squad AI and stuff like that.
We really had just tons of gameplay, physics and simulation as ideas. Put you in a situation where you can use your wits, use your environment to really give you a really rich gameplay experience with lots of freedom.
Half-Life 2 will also expand Valve's relationship with the gaming community.
Modding's changed a lot, going from sort of the old school days of where people would just sort of, here's an engine, see what you can do with it, to today where we have a thing called a software development kit, which we deliberately build and give the mod makers for them to go and build the mods for.
Valve also introduces a new content distribution system.
Steam is a new type of distribution model that Valve has come up with, where you're able to purchase your games completely online.
Steam is letting us have a much more direct relationship with our customers. We can use Steam to communicate about our games, deliver updates immediately to a huge number of people.
Half-Life 2 is finally released on November 16, 2004.
We were terrified that we weren't going to be able to pull it off.
And for the people at Valve Software, the game is worth the wait.
10 years from now, people look back at Valve and see a company that really genuinely cared about the games and the people who play games. They didn't cut corners, and yeah, they may have never shipped on time, but they at least lived up to its responsibilities to moving things forward.
When people evaluate Half-Life 2, they'll be able to look at it as not just entertainment, but an art form in the way that comic books and movies and books have come into their own as art forms, as well as being entertaining.
That's all for now.